All right, welcome back to Resilient Voices and Beyond. I'm so excited to have, I believe this is episode 40. This will be episode 40. Wow, when I think about that, it is mind blowing. When it went into this whole project and experience, not really knowing what was going to come out of it. I just knew that this is something I was called to do. I had the vision for what it was going to be and who I wanted to connect with, and why I wanted this platform to be here, and just to think 40 episodes. I just want to say I thank all the guests I've had in the past. I really appreciate you guys, and just answering the call for me, and what have you. But I'm excited for today's episode. I have a very good brother here. I'm not going to, spoil it, but I'm excited. I know he has a story. I know he has a journey, but he's going to great things and have done great things. So without further ado, I'm going to have him introduce himself, and we're going to get into it.
Yes, Brother Davis. Listen, Tony Rivera. I'm the founder and CEO of Fostering Minds. It's an LLC, just newly created. I'm a school counselor by day. That's my about 9 to 5. Let me tell you, it's not a. I didn't end up here by accident. It definitely was I would say a start and first and foremost by just the grace of God to get me on this journey and really to, I want to say handpick the people that has been, in my life on different seasons. And I have people that is currently in my life that have been on my journey that are still, continue to walk side by side with me to this day. So I'm excited to be on this podcast. You said episode 40. It's funny because I'll be 44 next week Friday, and the number 40 itself, it means a lot to me because I never knew I was going to make it this far. 25, 26, was always my trajectory just based on my upbringing. When I made it to 40, it was a blessing, and now I'm about to be 44. It's it's definitely, I'm definitely on my path. So I'm really excited to really share, my journey and hope that, I'll be able to inspire many of your audience members.
Thank you. And it's an honor and a privilege to have you on today. Wow. School counselor by day. So I just, even in that, I know you've seen some things, heard some things, been in it and out of it. But I ask this question a lot, to my guests that I have on, and I have to word it differently depending on the background. But I'm interested, and I believe the audience is too, is, on how did this journey begin for you? What was your experience growing up and going forward towards adulthood?
Absolutely. I would take you back to my mom had me when she was 15, right? Mm-hmm. I'll start there. Young adult, she had to make a decision, at that age to first and foremost have me. So I'm glad that she did because I wouldn't be on this podcast. So, it took me a long time to really get to that point to mm-hmm. reflect that, hey, the bigger picture now that I'm an adult. She had me when she was 15, through the neglect and abuse in the early stages, of my childhood. I was, placed in foster care at the age of 8. That's where my journey began, into the system. When people ask me my story, between birth to about age 8, it's blurry to me. So, I preface that to most people. It comes and goes when I have my moments, but, my journey really began in the foster care system at the age of 8, which from age 8 to I was 21, I was in the system. My journey was a little different. I went through the group homes. I was in a lot of different group homes, before the age of 13. I'm originally from New York City. the 5 boroughs in the inner city. I was riding the subway station trains, the age of 8, 9, right? Like think about today, you hear these kids, riding trains and, people go missing. When I say it was a blessing for me that nothing ever happened to me, right? He was definitely, guarding me, right? There was definitely an angel over me. But, from age 8, I was bouncing around from group home to group home. And for those of you who don't know about the group home system, it's a hierarchy. I mean, you get into some of these group homes. I mean, you have to fight for the basic needs. And I did that for a really long time, and I got tired of it. So when social worker, caseworker would put me in the emergency group home overnight, I didn't like the structure. Guess what? I ran away. I ran away, for so many times that they actually put me in a place above the city, in the Westchester County, which is like the suburbs of the New York City area. And it was this group home agency. I don't know if I can say the name, but it was a group home agency, above the city, well-respected agency. Once I arrived there, I was in like a new world. I mean, this organization, it was all campus living, residential setting where, the young men, it was all male. So it was all the young men, they had different, dorms split up. It was by alphabet. So it was like, unit A through D. Unit A was like the adult kids. Unit D was like the teenagers. But, coming in at that, that age, I got there when I was 12. So I was more on the young end. So I got right into their diagnostic sort of center. And, I didn't have to hop the trains. I didn't have to run away anymore, right? This was stability for me. Once I arrived, to Abbott House at the age of 12, I was placed in I went back into their former group home setting in Queens, where I was introduced, to a Queens community. I went to school, in that part of the city. I was there for like 2 years, and then when you 14, right, they transfer you to another appropriate level group home where, the staff is a little bit different, the skill set, independent living person that will come in and teach you those skills because they will prepare me to sort of, transition out at some point. So when I moved from that Queens location, I moved to a location in the Westchester area, and spent a few years there. Did my my middle school years, finished up middle school. I was going to go to a high school in another group home, but as the courts make the decision. It's best for the kid to return back to the parents. So they made the decision. I actually went back to my mom, at that point, and it was a disaster. I don't know why, the social worker thought it was okay to return me home. Well, I don't say the social worker, but it was really the courts. It was the wrong decision. So literally 6 months I was with her. I got right back in care. I ran away. I got back. I called the agency and was like, this is not working. I need to get back in care. So they actually got me back into the group home. At that point, I was placed in another one of their level group homes in Mount Vernon, New York. And there is where I discovered, I started my high school years. I didn't care about high school. I'm gonna be, upfront. I didn't care about school, right? My last thing that I was thinking about is just how I'm gonna survive getting out of the group home. And but one thing I will say, being in that group home in Mount Vernon, there was a kid that was in the group home. We went to the same school. He was taking his cooking class, and he used to always walk through the hallways with this cheese bread. And I kept asking, like, where are you getting this cheese bread? Like, I was hungry in the middle of the morning. He's like, listen, I'm taking this class. You should sign up for it, next year. Guess what? That's exactly what I did. I signed up, and it was kind of like an introduction to culinary arts. And I would tell you, Brother Davis, that sparked my interest in culinary. I had no idea that I loved to cook. And I was thinking, when I signed up for that class, I said to myself, wow, I'm a kid coming out, I'll be transitioning out I need to learn how to cook, right? I need some skills, cooking skills. No one's gonna wake up and say, hey, I'm not gonna go eat. So I'm thinking like long term, all right, what kind of jobs can I get in the future? What happened was after that, the Mount Vernon closed down. They actually turned that facility into a group home for disability. So I had to relocate to one of their inner city locations, which was down in the back in one of the 5 boroughs in the Bronx. When my social worker met with me, he was like, hey, you're gonna have to pick a school in the city. Which school do you want to go to? And I said, listen, I want to go to Park West High School. He said, why Park West? Out of all the schools you can choose from, I go, listen, they got one of the best culinary arts program in the city, and many of their kids, they have an opportunity to do some internships and go to college. And sure enough, I went there. I loved the school, and that's where I ended up, finished out my high school career. And I was a culinary arts major, at the high school, and I remember when I got there, I never told anybody I was living in a group home, right? That was a secret up until my junior year, until I was interviewed by they had a school newspaper, it was called Park West Express. And when I finally, was interviewed, by the school newspaper and really told my story, and opened up, and my classmates, my teammates, I was a basketball player. My basketball teammates didn't even know. The only people that actually knew my upbringing was my basketball coach, and it was my school counselor. Those are the only 2 people and I made sure, when they talk to different people, don't mention anything, right? I will come to school, with my clothes, but they were good. They were really good in holding my secret, for that long. But after that, my confidence level, after I was interviewed by the newspaper, definitely got me out of my shell. After I left and graduated from Park West High School, I actually went to a culinary school in the Adirondacks, which is the northern part of New York. And when I applied to school, I only applied to 3 schools. And I knew I wanted to be a kid that went far away. I didn't want to be a kid in a group home with a curfew. So I chose the furthest away school, so I won't have to have, be a kid with a curfew in a group home. So I chose a school in the middle of nowhere. And when I say middle of nowhere, Brother Davis, it sits on the intersection of Route 86, right, and 30. So my motto has always been, I went from the bricks to the sticks, because I grew up with the projects in New York City. So I've been sharing that story for a really long time, and literally it was in the wooded area, but it was a great, because I love the fish. They had my major. I got a chance to play basketball, and I finished up my 2 years. It was a 2-year school at the time, and after I finished that school, I went and did an internship, and then you know what? I said to myself, I don't want to work in this field. I want to keep on with my education. So I actually got recruited to play basketball at a Division III school in it's a city just southwest of the campus. I wanted to get back to the city, but not New York City. So I ended up in a city called Utica, New York, and where I finished up by my bachelor's degree, and I finished up my first master's. And I will say, what got me to college was this. New York has this state-funded program. It's called the Higher Educational Opportunity Program, and it's both at the public school and the private school. So Educational Opportunity Program is at the SUNY schools, which is the State University of New York, and ATOP is at the private schools. So at Paul Smith, I got into the ATOP program. And if it wasn't for that program, I wouldn't be here today. That program really changed my life. And fast forward, after I left Paul Smith, I went to SUNY. I was in their EOP program, so I was able to transfer into their program at the state level. I ended up finishing up. I actually worked for the school while I did part of my first bachelor's degree. And then after leaving there, I got my MBA, and I said, hey, I want to go work, for a corporation, right? So I did. I left there. I went to work for Enterprise Rent-A-Car. And that took me on that journey in the corporate America. I was there for, 2 years. After that, I went on to insurance sales, and I said to myself, this is not where I should be, right? I was fortunate enough to have people along my journey. I got a good education, but I need to be able to give back. So I landed a job at a private school in the Capital District of New York, in Albany, New York, where I currently live now, and it was for a private institution. Can I say? I don't know if I can say the name, but
Yeah.
it's Siena College, and the position was an admissions position, and the territory was New York City. Brother Davis, when I tell you that the position had my name all over it, I got to Siena in 2008, and I was at Siena for a good 6 years. My first 4 years, guess what? I was on the road going back to New York City, and I was recruiting students for Siena. But at the same time, I was changing lives because I was letting them see, hey, I'm a brother from the same city. I got out of the New York City public school system, and I would encourage my seniors, like, listen, you should be very proud of you getting yourself to the 12th grade. And I said, I know how hard it is to get here. So that was my first experience in just encouraging and giving back. It was twofold for me, more for the college, but it was more for myself, because for people to see that, hey, you can make it out of the inner city. And there was some, I would, during my time when I had breaks in between my high school visits, I would go back and visit the foster care agency I was a part of. I would go back and I talk to the kids, letting them know that, hey, I made it from here. Like, you guys can make it too. So I left Siena after that, after 6 years, and I went to work in an all-girls charter school in the inner city of Albany. And at the charter school, they don't have the same regulations as the public school system, where you have to have the credentials. So they actually hired me in as the director of college career readiness, where I had to work with young ladies, getting them through the college application process. And after my first year, those young ladies inspired me to go back to school for a school counseling degree. And every year, while I was going through my program, I would run into these same young ladies, and they would say, "Mr. Rivera, how you doing with that graduate degree?" And I said, "Hey, I'm almost finished. I'm almost finished. I got that. I got that 4.0." And that they kept me inspired when they would see me walk through the mall. But then, I got my degree. I ended up leaving that charter school, and I went to work for a community college. I'm doing the same work. As you see, my distance has always been about motivating and being around youth. Once I left that charter school, I went to work for a community college in their Upward Bound program, which you probably are familiar. It's a federal program, and it's around the country. I was the assistant project director, working with 4 different high schools, working with you. But this time, the population was students in the rural area. So I was able to build relationships like I always have. Being in a group home, you get in touch with a lot of different people. You meet a lot of different people. So I had no problem building relationships. After I left that job, I got hired in my current role now at a school district down in the Latham area, which is 15 minutes from where I currently live. I live in Troy, New York, so it's right across the river, where I've been there now for the past 3 years, changing people's lives. And they hired me because their population was changing, and they wanted someone with expertise and my experience as the EOP director, prior to coming from SUNY Adirondack. So, I was fortunate enough to not only be a part of the program, education opportunity program, but also, was able to build an entire program before coming to being in my current role. So as I, reached my tenure this past January in my current role as a school counselor, fostering minds have always been on the back of my bucket list that I wanted to give back. As you know, there's only that 2%, that 2 to 9% that actually go on and get a 4-year degree. And that's always been in the back of my mind. And when people ask me, wow, you got all these degrees, you must be, really proud of yourself. But I tell people I didn't get it, for the degree. I got it for the language, right? I needed to learn the language to be able to do the work that I do, because I knew, based on my experience, I couldn't just go into, school district and say, I want to apply for a school counseling job. They're not going to hire me because you got to have the credentials. So once I got the credentials, I was able to get in, and knowing that what I wanted to do is share my story and inspire the youth. So that leads me, right now to where I'm currently am, on this podcast right now. I know I was long-winded, but that's my journey.
It is perfect. It is perfect. Wow, it has been a journey. It has. And I have a couple of questions, but I just want to take a moment to just say, like, you made it. You are making it, and you are breaking those barriers, and have broke those barriers. And I know, as well as I did, I know you had that moment when you reached that certain pivotal age where you didn't think you was gonna get to. Making it out the neighborhood. For me, it was Detroit. It was like, okay, I'm past 16. I just got to get to 18. I'm past 18. I'm not locked up. I'm not shot. I'm not dead. I don't have X amount of baby mamas or whichever, the stigma, or the statistics say. It was a proud moment for me. But it was also bittersweet because I recognized that a lot of people from my neighborhood, a lot of people my same outcome, aren't making it either. So, that set me on a journey, that thought, and I didn't know where that thought was going to take me. And I don't know if you had the same, but it seemed like you did. You didn't know where that thought was going to take you, but it put you in the right places, at the right tables, at the right position to bring you to where you were and where you are now. And it's from here, listening to your story, it's like each job levels you for the next one around the corner.
Yes, sir.
And it speaks to purpose and knowing what's for your season and whichever. And I'm sorry, I'm a Christian to the audience, so
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I can't help but see that journey and what God has plans for other people, and it makes me excited, it makes me happy, but to get to my questions, to round back, you said your mom was 15 years old when she had 15. And have you, I have to ask, it's comfortable. Have you taken time to look back at what her story was? What was that journey, and have you reconnected with family and what have you?
I get that question asked a lot. I do know where she's located. I have been in contact throughout the years, and as situations where, and I lead this back to my work as a school counselor and having that perspective, right? Mm-hmm. And also having done the work on myself, I understood the choices that she had to make mm-hmm. at that age. It took me a long time to understand that because I was angry. Mm-hmm. But once it wasn't until my adult life where I finally said to myself, it's irrelevant whether I know what happened. It's irrelevant, right? Mm-hmm. She made a decision to birth me. And if it wasn't for her making that decision alone, everything that I've done in my life wouldn't have transpired. Mm-hmm. So along the journey, right, when people don't heal or work on themselves, right. It's kind of hard to communicate with someone where they constantly bringing up the past, right? Where I already accepted it, right? And other people have their, other members of my family have had, their points of view on my journey, and that's their perspective, right? They witness everything that had went on that journey. I'm only hearsay on what I remember. So I try to separate myself from their experiences because that's not mine. And I do that intentionally because I don't want to make the mistake of inheriting their perspective and it tarnish what I'm going to share with my children. Right. And that's why I don't I listen, but I don't take their sides, or I hear what they have to say in their point of view, and that's all it is. Right. I don't make judgment.
Right. Beautifully said. I love that, and you and I share a similar journey, the group homes, the residential facilities and what have you. And the reason I asked that question is because one of the conversations I've been having in my advocacy and trying to, provoke in the bigger scheme of change in the system is the cycle of generation, and it starts, and not everyone enters into the foster care system, that is a product of that generation. Some of the people stay home and then they end up taking up what their parents put out to them, and then they end up putting it out. And it may be 2 generations until that kid is put into the system, that has passed, of passing that abuse down or passing what has happened down. So, in the scope of generational traumatization and foster care and all these different things, and trying to be preventative and helping and resourcing many different cultures and many different families, but I'm going to say specifically the African-American family and what have you. There's no help, there's no source, there's no resource. There's a lot of aftercare, it's a lot of band-aids, but we don't look at the present. Okay, what does prevention look like? Well, if you don't mind, have a young lady that's 15. How can we support her at 15 to be the best young lady that she wants to be? Have everyone in the family wrap themselves around her. Have everyone wrapped around that 15-year-old young man. Like what is happening in those environments? Maybe mom, dad isn't there, grandma taking care of the kids. How can we support grandma from getting to a place of being sick and tired? When is the boundary for, okay, this kid's gonna just be kids, or I need to hey, you can't do that here. So having these thought-provoking conversations to break the cycles and what have you, instead of coming in afterwards. But that's a whole different conversation. There's so many different branches to that tree, but that was why I asked that question, because it's too many times I see the cycle and I don't see a lot of people making it out. So my next question is, you spoke about your journey being in these group homes and transitioning a lot, how did you make it through that? I know you said there was a hierarchy. There was like a survival of the fittest in there. And I know as well, like you got to get in where you fit in. It's almost, I'm gonna do my time and get out. That's the mindset I use. How did you survive through that? Walk us through what that looked like in these group homes for you a little bit more.
Absolutely. Person I am today, not the last now having a conversation, it'd be a lot of right. I'm able.
You went out a little bit. I can hear you now, but you're going out just a little bit. It's going in and out just a tad.
All right, hold on one second. Can you hear me now?
Yes. And I know you're dropping gems, so I want to make sure we get it on.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Can you hear me now?
Yes, that's perfect.
Yep. So what I think what's got me through, not only just through those group home situations, but it's also, what got me through life. And I think it was my personality, my patience, and my ability to connect. Right. I wasn't a fighter by choice. Right. But I was a fighter by like trying to defend myself. But it was just out of my character to fight. But I knew in certain situations I had to take care of business. Right. But I that was at a minimum because I ran away a lot. And not that I was afraid of fighting, but I was just like, this is not me. Like, this is not what I want. This is not what I want. And I was able to just not, just sometimes I'll win the kids over with my personality, or I would just give up my snack. It was little things like that. I played the game, right? I didn't know what it was called back then, but it was a lot of the psychological game, the mind tricks. And I did that. I gave up my snack. I gave up my, I'd be like, hey, like just chill. I'm gonna give my snack for the next 3 days. Like I'm not trying to. I just want to relax. I just want to sleep, take a nap. But yeah, and I had some staff members that they were cool. They picked up on, like I wasn't a fighter. Like I was one who's like I was a focus. So they would look out, they'd watch out, they'll watch out for me. But then as I got older, like, I was placed in group homes where I actually took the lead, right? Where it wasn't about fighting anymore. I'm like I got to the point where I'm like, what do you want after your life? After this group home. And some of these guys were older than me. And I'm having these conversations with them like, you're gonna be aging out, right? The behavior you're doing, like they're gonna kick you out. Like what's your plan? This is me. I'm like 15. And I'm having these conversations. And they're like, some of them were like, rough and tough, and they're like, I don't care. But I'm like, all right. Well, I'm gonna tell you what my plan is. And I only told them my plan was so that way maybe they inspire them or maybe they can start thinking. But I needed them to shape up because I didn't want them to become a statistic, because we all knew what's going to happen, because we had kids who left before us, and they left the group home and they end up going back home to the city and they get killed, right? Or they're not doing what they need to do back in their homes, and they ended up back in the group home, right? So it got to a brotherhood at some point, right? And with some of the kids, but you couldn't reach them all, right? So even at that young age, I was always trying to influence people, but I didn't know what it was. It was just my personality. I knew I had a plan. I knew I was getting out. I knew I was going to college, right? And I didn't know what else was going to happen after that. Even when I got to college, I didn't know whether or not I was going to finish. I just knew I was out of the group home. I was free, right? And there's some things I had to deal with coming out of the group home, right? I went to I went to that Paul Smith college where, like, there's very few people that look like me, right? So I had to make the adjustment, because even though I met a lot of different people that were different from me, I still had people that looked like me, right? So when I went to that college, it was a huge adjustment. But the good thing that I had is that being part of that ACLP program, they bring in a cohort of students from all different walks of life. And the one thing we had in common, you had to meet the income requirement and you had to meet the GPA. So we knew as a group, we were coming in and we had that in common. So when we had the conversations, right, we would talk about, hey, what was your biggest struggle in high school? I would be like, mine was English. And they'd be like, oh, wow. Yeah, I was like, yeah, going in my senior year, I was reading and writing 8th grade level. So if it wasn't for this program, I was looking for help, and especially in the writing. Math was my thing, but I really wanted to be a good writer. So I know if I'm going to go out there and be a good communicator in the future, I got to be able to write some, string some sentences together.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, everything is intentional, right? I chose that school because of, HOP program, the major, but the people that was on that journey that recruited me, my basketball coach, when I, on breaks, when I didn't want to go back to the group home, guess what? I stayed in this house. Like I played the game, right? I knew how to, that self-discipline. I didn't need anybody else to set the discipline on myself, because coming out of the group home, you have structure. So I already knew how to, handle that. So I took those, that structure that I had, and I basically, flipped them. So when I'm out in the real world or at the college, I don't need anybody to self-discipline. I'm gonna discipline myself, right? So I followed the rules, right? I had no problem with that. I need to know what the rules were at first, but then I was able to follow it. And I've always been that way. I believe I answered your question.
Yeah. I love how you put it, and I'm interpreting how I heard it, like showing up for self. This is what it was. This is what had happened. You knew where you wanted to go. You didn't really know the distance of that plan just yet, where it was going to leave you, but you said, I'm going to show up and be present there. So whatever the outcome is, I'm doing my work, and I love that. I love that.
Yes, and that's always been my path. I had to show up. I had to do my part, and whatever my part was, I didn't have control of anybody else. But I knew if I show up and do the work, I was gonna find success some way.
Definitely.
And I kept saying to myself, me coming out of the group home, there was always someone else struggling far worse. Always far worse. So I shouldn't complain. I'm gonna keep moving forward. And I just continue to just walk with my faith. That's one thing I did. I just walk with my faith. I didn't know what was coming next, but I believed, something was gonna happen. And every moment where I thought things were gonna go sour, guess what? I held on to my faith, and everything seemed to work out, even to the day. To everything I do in life now, everything seems to work out, even when I don't believe in it at the beginning.
Definitely. I have another question here.
Sure.
I get this question asked to me a lot. And I just think it's important. Because I feel like I've answered this question on some other podcasts. But as a young Black man, aging out, how did you stay true to yourself despite society's view and all that was against you moving forward? How did you continue to persevere? And I know you had the mindset, you had the tool belt, you had at least the next step for that plan. But in those moments, because I know we all get them, you see how society looks at you, how did you maintain self and continue to chase your goals to get to a better place?
Absolutely. So let me just say this. So growing up, like I'm 100% Puerto Rican. So when people look at me, they assume like they don't assume I'm Spanish, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I had so that was a balancing act, right? Depending on the people I was around. So I had to balance. So in some circles, right, I wasn't Spanish enough, right? And because I learned the English language enough to command it well, that when I talked to my brothers and sisters of color, like they were like, I'm not Black enough. So I had to balance. Like it's weird, but I'm putting it out there because that's always been a struggle my entire life. Like, where do I fit in? But having to be able to code switch on both of those areas, even within my cultures, it was a blessing, because there were some times where I can, I will speak the Spanish, right? The limited amount that I knew, but I knew enough to build that bond. And on the other side, I'm like, yeah, I can flip it and be like what's good? Let's make it. You know what I mean? Let's make it happen. Like, let's do this. And they're like, wow, like you can switch it. That's been my blessing. So when it comes to like the society and the stigma, like I always try to model, right? Modeling is key, right? Because if I don't model, right, and if I don't have people that can speak for my character, I'm done, right? So I was fortunate enough that not only was I able to follow the rules, and even when people had the stigmas of even with just kids out of the group home, once I told people I came out of the group home, they already had this preconceived notion of the type of person that I was, right? So I had to like, hey, I understand what you see or what you may have read about, someone coming out of my situation. That's not the case, right? I'm a living proof. Like, not all people coming out that situation are like that.
Right.
And that's why I strive to educate people along my journey. So I never really got sort of hooked on what the society or anybody. I was conscious of it, right? So anytime I had the opportunity to, bring a person to a side where, I had to have that, hey, listen, like perception is everything. Like I had those talks with, some of the youngins. I would do that, right? It could be on a basketball court. It can be, or if I'm in the mall or I'm walking around, or a situation, or if it's in a place where, the person may feel uncomfortable, because I can see that if they feel uncomfortable, I will try my best to get over there and talk to that person, right? To school them, right? And the only reason why I have that sort of approach is because I had people in my corner that did that to me. They schooled me. Hey, here's how you, in certain situations, here's how you should act, right? Here's what the norm is, society norms are, right? So I learned that from a young age. Even now that's changing, right? Right now, with the new generation and everything that's going on in the world now, the youngest, they just want to be, acknowledged and heard, and I get that, right? So now my approach is different. My approach is, all right, so my quote that I sent to you is, I want to seek for understanding before being understood. And the reason why that's so powerful, because if I don't know where these young people are coming from or where they've been on their journey, I don't even have a starting place where to meet them. So I make it a point to meet them where they are, right? What they share with me to help me understand where they've been, where they stand in front of me when we start that initial conversation. From there, we'll be able to go in a different direction and see if my skills are even, or my knowledge is going to be for them. I might not be the person for them, but I have enough people in my, my circle that I'll be able to connect them with, right? And that's one thing I've been proud of, is that I've always been a connector, right? People have always say, hey, wait, you're not a lawyer, you're not a doctor, how come you got all these people? But I build relationships, and I strive to build relationships and maintain them. Not everybody is in my closer circle, but the people that are in my closer circle, they know who they are, right? These are the people that I give that text 3 in the morning if I'm really have something on my mind. These are the people that, no hesitation, I'll pick up the phone and call them, right? There's very few people I have like that in my circle. And you interviewed one of my mentors in one of your previous episodes, and I tell you, if it wasn't for him, he's in my corner. He's always walking. He's the one that's continued to walk by my side.
Definitely. Your story is very inspiring, and definitely, I'm just taking taken a lot of in for myself. Like, okay. And I just hope that, some of the audience that are listening are able to receive some of the gems that you're putting out, and tips and nuggets. My next question, more so is, you talked about it a little bit briefly, fostering minds.
Yes.
And and you said that has always been in the back of your mind, and then you put in the work to get it going and stuff like that. What is the goal with this? What is the journey? What's the plan? I'm going to ask a little bit later towards the end, how can people support? But I'm interested in what's the journey is, and what's your plan?
Absolutely. So I give you a little bit of brief history about the name. Fostering Minds, when I sat back and tried to think of a name of the organization, one thing I knew I wanted to do is to change that statistic. I want to have that, the number of people, transition out of foster youth going on to college is about 2 to 9%. I want to increase that number. So the name came about. I'm like, fostering minds, fostering. I'm like, I've been fostering minds for so long, from admissions counselor to, working with youth at all different walks in life. I've been doing this for a long time. It just made sense. So, when I got the name down and I saw it when I wrote it down, I'm like, yeah, this is it, fostering minds. And that's exactly and I wanted to have a play on a kid coming out of foster care. So that's why, the foster is in there. But my goal is, I want to work with foster care agencies, right? And I want to see what they're doing in terms of, I know every agency has like a independent living coordinator that prepares the youth, once they transition out. I want to see exactly what that looks like. And I want to help them, because not everybody, I understand everybody's not going to want to go on to college, right? They want to go to trade school, or they want to be able to have the skills necessary to be successful. So what I'm going to bring, I'm going to work with them over a 3-year period. And, during that time, take some good notes. In the first 2 years, I'm working within the group. The last year and the third year, my goal is to really come up with individual plans with some of the kids on, who want to live. If they want to go to college, I can help them with that. But along those 3 years, I want to provide them with the financial literacy. I want to be able to, if they, want to become writers, or they, they have a fear of writing. Like, I want to do those soft skills that they're going to need, when they get out in life. And connect them with people who, can help them on their journey. And really have those heart-to-heart conversations with them, because some of them may be feeling broken. So working with their social worker to say, hey, all right, let's see, what can be done to find some of the root causes of the trauma, because trauma plays a huge role in a lot of these youth. Some of it is they haven't dealt with, and what I don't want for them that will happen to me is that you bring some of this into your adult life, and it can affect your marriage, right? If you don't deal with it, and it can affect your relationships with people, right? Because you if you haven't dealt with it. But that's my goal, right? That'll be my part, and I'm starting right here in New York State, here and right here in the capital area. There's quite a few foster care agencies, and I'm fortunate to be in the capital where many of the policies pass through the city. So I can hear read about some of the policies that being passed out. I will tell you, back in, I want to say 2016, there's this 2015 and 16, it was a foster care youth initiative that this young lady, a former foster youth, raised so much money. Now kids that are transitioning now of transitioning out of foster care, not only are there's funds available for them to go to college, like they trying to make it pretty much they don't have to take out any loans, and that's huge.
Definitely, and it's inspiring to see the change and to hear your mission and what you're trying to accomplish. And I plan to continue to stay connected and to hear and see in any way that I can support you along your journey. But it's much needed. It's much needed. I go back to thinking where I was in high school. I've been to over 20 different high schools before I got to my 21st high school and graduated. Well, I remember that technically junior, senior / year, I'm learning things that I should have learned before. And I'm in like crisis mode in the emergency room of my life, trying to gain everything to graduate, on time and what have you. And I ended up graduating, ended up pushing through and stuff like that by rallied supports, by a similar not a program, but by similar people coming to me and offering me those kind of supports, and helping me and guiding me. But a lot of it was I knew I didn't want to be the person left behind in high school.
Yeah.
I didn't want that to be an aspect of my story, so I made sure that the teacher offered to me to come in early. I caught 4 buses, walked, a mile or so, and I was at school before the teachers got there waiting for them to get in there because math was my struggle. I was like,
yes,
look,
sir.
I need to get this done. And the thing is, what I think is so helpful with programs like what you have and what you're building is that not everyone starts with that mindset. Someone needs to be invited in that room sometimes to be able to develop that mindset and that will for themselves.
Yes.
I was put in a certain circumstance and a product of an environment that pushed you to challenge. And that push to challenge eventually changed to resiliency and perseverance and self-advocacy. But it didn't start there. It started from a very toxic and unhealthy habit of challenging my environment and the people around me because I was hurt and I was angry. And I had to come to a place to be able to change that to be a healthy habit and utilize people's resource. I used to be the person that had a hard time asking for help, especially when it came to school, because I remember I got to a point I was getting bullied so bad. Well, anytime I get called on, I would do stuff to get kicked out of the class because I sucked at math. I couldn't count, didn't know my multiplication, and I found myself trying to do those same things when I'm at my junior, senior year because I didn't know my multiplication.
Yes, sir.
So it is very real what you're trying to do, and I appreciate it. And I'm sure the youth and the minds that you're going to help is going to be very appreciative. I live off the motto of I'm not here for myself. I don't feel like God has called me in this specific ministry of advocacy and stuff like that. But for myself, a lot of things I advocate for, I'm not going to be able to read from or whichever. Is to be able to help that next generation coming out of the system, out of these group homes, to be in a better place where they can be stable when they age out or in the process of aging out. My next question, as I get ready to ask these last couple questions before we end out, is you've been through a lot. That journey has took you through many different milestones and barriers and what have you. What has mental health looked like for yourself along that journey far as now?
I referenced a few minutes ago saying that if you don't deal with the trauma early on, it can affect your marriage. And I can honestly say in my first marriage, it did that. It took me some time to reflect after everything was said and done, after I went through my divorce, that it was more so me, that I wasn't dealing with, certain situations I was passive. Here's where I go back to that following the rules, right? Don't say anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
That can become, it can become, when you passive and you don't say anything, you're saying something, even though you don't verbally say it.
Mm-hmm.
And that, it was a breakdown, right? I breakdown in communication. I would shut down. I would resort to the tendencies I would do when I was in a group home or when I faced a tough situation, right? You will run, right? You getting that?
Mm-hmm.
And then some of those things that, I didn't deal with, right? Now, I'm remarried now. And now, Maya Angelou, when you know better, you do better. And guess what? I'm doing just that, right? I work on myself. I'm a huge advocate for therapy, right? Having a counselor, right? It doesn't mean you have something wrong with you. We all need check-ins. We all have, as Steve Harvey would say, we all have some craziness in us, right?
Mm-hmm.
We do. We have these thoughts going through. If someone tells you don't have these thoughts going through your mind, that's crazy, because our lives move. We our minds move so much and so fast that we gotta slow it down. And sometimes, we conjure up these thoughts in our minds, and if we don't have a way to let them out in a safe space from someone who's objective, that's hard. People carry that for a long time. And I know the stigma between both the Hispanic and the African American community has been like,
Mm-hmm.
we don't talk about our problems, right? We don't talk. But I
Shove
will
that, you
tell
can shove
you,
that right under the rug, and just leave it
listen,
there.
I will tell people, listen, if you feel comfortable going to a therapist, there's nothing wrong with it,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I know some people, and I would say more of the older generation, they have their own way of dealing with things, and I get it, right? And that wasn't the norm in their time, and I get that. And this, so I go back to me being fortunate. I was always older youth, so I've always communicated with people like who was older than me. Those are the people
Mm-hmm.
that I had in my corner. So when I hear their perspective, I understand it clearly,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, and then I understand the youth, because that's what I do on a day in, day in. I work with youth. So meeting them where they're at and understanding them. And, I think I shock some of them when they come into my office and they come in with a situation, and I'm just like, and I hear them. And then the way I form my questions to them, they're like surprised, because I heard them, and I say it back to them just to make sure I understand it. And they're like, yeah, Mr. Rivera, that's exactly what I'm feeling right now. And then it makes me feel good, because those are not my words. Like, I feel like when I'm in those moments with my student, God is working through me. He's working through me, and every single one of those conversations, it's not me. Like, I'm just fortunate to be in those roles where, I'm very conscientious of, words can hurt. So whatever I say that comes out of my mouth, whether it's intentional or unintentional, they can have a long lasting effect. So I'm very conscientious of my words and my words choice of when I'm working with my students, and I think it's important. But yeah, I have no problem going to therapists and getting my fine tune up here and there. We do it with our cars, right?
Right. Hey, definitely, I appreciate that, and I want to say I appreciate you correcting me. I'm telling you, like, we almost the same complexion, so black, brown, Hispanic,
Oh yeah.
So I wanted to say that, and acknowledge that I appreciate you correcting me, because I did not ask, if what your cultural background was. But that just goes to tell, look, I love you just the same,
Yes, sir. I appreciate you.
um, but definitely, and I think about, the stigma surrounding both cultures, you know, and respecting the past, how they got by. Both
Yes, sir.
cultures have experienced slavery and having to be hushed, to get by and what have you. So there comes a time when we ain't gonna speak about that. Got you. What's keeping you safe?
Yep.
What's keeping you at home with family? You know, what's keeping you from getting killed? You know, so I can respect that. I can pay homage to it. But as society modernize, we have to pay homage to what is now and what is present. You know, and as we are adapting and evolving to all these new different things, we can't just say, all right, you know, we gonna, you know, just gonna warm up the car and keep it pushing. That ain't gonna help us now because our mind has molded to what society is now, and that means our mental health has too. So we have to try newer things. You know, when I was in group homes and residentials, one of the key things they taught me was that, you know, you may have a few coping skills that may last you a lifetime, but all of your coping skills won't be the same all the time. You're going to have to continue to work and tune what your mental health journey is. And you may have different coping skills 6 months later, you know, because that's what you needed then, you know. So knowing that you're in a place of ever evolving and changing, we have to recognize that it's okay to get help. You know, there's so many different forms of therapy out there. Just figure out what's best for yourself.
Yes.
You know, and I'm a person of faith. I'm a Christian, and I attend church. I read my word, my physical word, and I read devotionals. You know, whichever. And you know, those who follow me on Facebook know I put the prayers out there, or whichever. But I would not be here without the other work. You know, I pray, but I also put in the work. You know, and I know that it takes more than just one or the other. You know, it takes both together. You know, and whichever your realm is, and whichever works for you. If you want to do art therapy, you want to do music therapy, whichever, just find what works for you in that avenue. You know, for some people it may be medication, but I believe as a society, we have to start having those conversations surrounding mental health.
Yes.
And what have you, because it doesn't matter if you've been in foster care, been incarcerated, spend time in jail, or whatever your story is, your testimony or whichever. We all have been through something that we're holding on to, or have hold on to. It's one of the people that was in my life. They were a coordinator of a program. They I hope they don't mind me sharing this. They told me that if anything you get from a therapist or get from seeking mental health services, is someone you can talk to that can't tell nobody.
Yes. Yes.
Like you can tell that can't tell nobody. So if anything, you go there talking about anything. Listen,
that object.
Nobody. So it ain't like don't tell your favorite cousin, best friend, and then it slip out, whichever. You can go talk to a professional. You can either ask them for advice or throw their advice out the door. But at least you coming out there to clean slate. But that's my little spiel. That's my little rant about it. Just have those conversations, start those dialogues at home, in the car, on your commute, whichever. My next question is, COVID is out there. It's been out here. Many different people experience it differently. What has been your personal experience with that, and what has got you through?
So it's funny because for all my life, I've been wanting to write a book all my life. And once the pandemic, the onset of the pandemic, came about, I actually started writing. And midway through the first year of the pandemic, life got in the way. I was working from home, and my wife was pregnant at the time, and we had to go, a whole year. And I started writing, and I had to push things to a side. So I was able to bring some stuff that was on my back burner to the front, right? I did a lot of reading on mindset, and listen to a lot of different podcasts from a lot of different people, from TD Jakes to Tony Robbins to Brene Brown. I mean, you name it. You know, Steve Harvey. I listened to some of his motivational speeches, just to get in that mindset, and that was just fuel for my body, because I knew coming out of this pandemic, I wasn't going to be the same person. You know, and I think T.D. Jakes has this quote. He said, "You can't be who you're going to be. You can't be who you used to be and who you're going to be at the same time." Right. So any new information that I receive from the podcast, I'm going to apply it right away. And I did just that. It kept me motivated throughout this entire pandemic. Going into shortly before my daughter was born, I had, took a hiatus on writing. And I said, if I really want to become this writer and want to become an author, I'm going to have to set the fire under my butt. And I did just that. So in January, the year she was born, she's born in March of 2021. So that January of 2021, 2 months, I wrote a book. I wrote the writing of the book, and then I worked with an illustrator. It was a children's book, and was basically a book about promises made to her. It was called "Welcome to Our World: Promises Made to You." There's a set of promises, for my daughter and it can be for any parent, that we were going to live and live, pass that to her, as she grows up. And I finished like 2 weeks after she was born. The book was finished. And, I had it, released in October of 2021. And that itself, as much it was more of a personal journey for me. Now I'm going to finish my book, all my life. And I think my goal is to put it in the series, like The Adventures of TR, and just basically chunk it up, because, and I'm writing it in that way to, keep up some of the names, because, like I said, I don't remember many of the things that occurred between, birth to 8. So this was the way I can, write in such a way that I can sort of build my story. But yeah, I'm definitely a different person than I was, back in 2019, in the onset. I'm just, mentally, like I'm on fire. Like I'm so focused right now on, building this fostering minds. And, like I said, I just became tenured in my job. So things start, I'm in the groove right now. And, now I'm able to like do more things and connect with people and bring all my, professional and, personal upbringing all to the table, when I'm, building fostering minds.
Definitely. And it's such an honor. You kind of got into my last question, so I'm gonna move right into it. What tips and tidbits do you have for the listeners today? And we have some social workers, we have some foster care alumni, we have agency directors, what have you. So, feel free. I'm gonna let you choose what advice you give.
Yeah. I think my answer to that question, I'm gonna speak specifically to the youth out there, who are currently in care or who have transitioned out, and some of the adults that are out there, that have the opportunity to connect with some of these kids in foster care. Don't be afraid to share your story. You don't have to go in the details, but don't be afraid to share your journey, because you don't know who is out there waiting to listen and needs to hear your story. For a long time, my story has been on the back burner. And, I felt almost guilty, because, in the Bible, it says that, God gives you a gift and you have to put it out there to multiply. And I felt like I wasn't doing that. And I felt really guilty. And now through Fostering Minds, I'm gonna be able to share my story, because I know that there's someone in the audience that's waiting to hear my story, and that they're gonna need that, that little bit of encouragement. And I encourage all of the foster youth people just to listen, just keep your heads up, right? And just know that there's people out there that's going to be willing to help and show you that love that you need. And sometimes, it may take a little bit longer, but just know that there's somebody out there, because, this for me, it was people along my journey. And every time I gave up hope, someone will walk through that door. And I'm hoping that, for them, somebody will walk through that door. If you're listening to this podcast right now and you're on that sort of brink of edge where you don't think, things are not going to pan out well, or you don't know what tomorrow looks like, I hope that this podcast encourages you, like, you can build your future, right? And it all starts, we all go out trying to seek, for approval, or we look for something special about, in other people. But I just want you to know, it's all inside of you, right? And sometimes you have to get out of your environment, or just change something and to find what it is inside of you. But it's inside of you. You just got to get it out. And how you get it out, that's going to be different for different people. But just know that it's inside of you.
Well, I just want to say, first and foremost, it has been an honor having you on. Your story has resonated with me at a very deep, and just being able to hear your journey and your experience and just perseverance to push forward and to step into purpose, and to speak to that, I was putting this podcast on the back burner for a while, continuously investing in other activities, letting my mind focus on, that, and we get into that spirit of settling and like, okay, well, I got this to do. I can't really, push forward,
Mm-hmm.
and something came to mind. New Year was coming up. I was like, no more. I got, this is what I need to do. I feel like this is what I'm called to do. So I need to do it. And I'm honored, throughout this time, I have been, getting reassured that this is where, this is a platform that needs to be here. And I'm here to share with you guys and share with you, it's been hard, because you like, this is your baby. You like, is this the right time? Is this the right season?
Mm-hmm.
Is this really what I'm called to do, or is it my voice saying it, or is it really God's voice telling me? As at trying to figure out all those right answers, and I just consistently been reassured. So I'm glad to be here and have this platform for you guys that are listening. Glad to be able to bring this platform for like to have guests like yourself to share your stories and to be heard and received.
Yes, sir.
Because I think that is the most powerful thing, to be listened to, and fully listened to a point where it's received and it's heard,
Yes.
and it's thought provoking. One of the biggest things is, I hope out of every one of these episodes, whichever episode speaks to you, if all of them does, that's great. But I hope out of all episodes that I put out in the future and putting out now that, they invoke conversation,
Yes.
if you have experience, or say for instance, you don't even have no experience in this arena, you just stumbled across this podcast. This, this is a whole world that you probably didn't even,
Yeah. Yep.
So, I know it's, swinging in your mind and all those different things. So that's one of the biggest things here for me. And I know each and every time, I explain one of the reasons why I'm doing this. And I think it's to do that to continually to remind the audience, but also to remind myself of the why,
Yes.
So I thank you for that. I thank you for that, because that's what I take from, taking in for myself, is that this is
Absolutely
needed. And it's here for a reason, and to step into my purpose gladly and gratefully. So how can the audience stay connected with you, follow you throughout
Absolutely.
this journey?
Absolutely. So I'm on Instagram. You can find me at Fostering Minds LLC. You see a picture of me on there. You can reach me by email. I definitely respond by email. Email address is fosteringmindsco@gmail.com. Definitely shoot me a message, or send me a message on Instagram. I definitely respond as soon as I get your message. If you want to collaborate, I would love to hear. If you have some ideas on what you're doing in your state, if you're a new business owner, I'm not afraid to ask for help. So, if you have some ideas that I can use here in New York, I'll be really open to, I don't want to reinvent the wheel. I mean, I have my ideas, but, if I don't have to reinvent the wheel and you have some success in your states, definitely connect with me and see what we can do. Because I think together we can change that number. We can change that 3%. Even if we get to 5%. The next 5 years. Let's listen. I'm not looking for perfection. I'm just looking for a little bit of progress.
Definitely. It has been an honor. It's been a privilege. I want to thank you for sharing your truth, your experience, and being vulnerable and open and honest with us today. I don't think this will be the last time we're talking. I would love to, have you as you establish more into your organization and you get into working it and whichever. I would love to have you back to talk about, a little bit more about what you've been doing,
Absolutely.
and if there's been any growth to the vision, and what have you. And to, just further connect you with the audience and maybe some people that may be in New York that still need to be connected to your program,
Yes.
So I would love to
Yes.
have you back, at a later date. It's truly been an inspiration and honor. And I just want to say thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to connect with me.
Absolutely. Listen, I appreciate you having me and then giving me the opportunity to share my voice and to learn more about Fostering Minds and my journey. We would definitely stay connected. And listen, like I said to you in my initial message to you, keep doing what you're doing. This is much needed, and your audience are definitely blessed to have this at as arm's reach, to stay connected. So, keep doing what you're doing, and I wish you the best as we continue to move forward in 2022. And I wish you, good blessings, and keep that growth coming.
Definitely. So, you guys know, same spiel, COVID out there is doing its thing. Please stay safe. Whether you're thinking about getting vaccinated, whether you're not, it's your prerogative, but do what you need to do to maintain a safe village. Whether that's with your friends, your family, or your cat, dog, fish, dog, goat, pig, whichever. Just make sure that you're doing what you can to stay safe out, because while you're taking care of yourself, you're taking care of millions of others. Other aspect, we talked about mental health, and I've been talking about this a couple of times on this podcast. If you're in a place where you're trying to figure out self, you got questions, if you've been in foster care, take a chance, go see a therapist. If it's not for you, reassess, have that conversation, and figure out what is for you. But not doing nothing, allowing it to happen, allowing yourself to further sink, if that is your story, isn't healthy, and I want to make sure that we all are taking care of each other. And that's even for, the other people, family members, the social workers, whichever. Take a chance, you go see somebody, ask them how they doing, check on them. We need to do that. That doesn't need to just happen in the South. Hey, how you doing? We need to all do that sometime and check in on each other. This has been a pleasure being able to have this episode 40. I just that it's crazy to think about that. But I hope you guys have a good evening, good morning, good night, good whenever you're listening to this. This has been Resilient Voices and Beyond. Thank you.